Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. This is Football at 4.
Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by Prop Swap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bet, take your profit, find out how. PropSwap.com. Download the Prop Swap app today. You know, Kenny Pickett, they measured his hand today, 8.5. Which they were saying 9's really small. He's 8.5. How will that affect him? You know, Joe Burrow was a 9. I think Mike Vick was a 9. Kenny Pickett, 8.5. So maybe his dreams have been shattered to be drafted as a quarterback in the NFL, according to people, that look at that kind of stuff. But Geoff Mosher's here from InsideTheBirds.com and the Inside the Birds podcast. What are those, 5.3?
On a good day. No, I have long fingers, so It might help me out a little bit. But.
I know that that throwing the football is tough for me because I have small hands.
Yeah. Well, there goes your NFL quarterback career. You and Kenny Pickett. I mean, he should just probably pretty much blow off the combine and give up football and go into knitting.
That's it.
I mean, it's over for him.
Is that being talked about a lot today, though, out there?
I just got back. I am back in New Jersey, but I was there this morning in the last few days, and certainly it's a big topic of discussion with him. But it feels like more like I don't want to call out my own kind, like a media generated topic than it is an NFL concern. I mean, the tape is going to show that he played at Pittsburgh, and there are plenty of cold weather games and bad weather games that he played in at Pittsburgh, and they're going to decide whether the gloves, it's not just the hand size, but the wearing the gloves was impactful or not. I spoke to some people over the last 2 days that think that teams might think of it's an issue, and then I spoke to some teams who don't think it's an issue, maybe compared to some other things that they may not love about Kenny Pickett.
Yeah, I've been, I'm not a big fan of Pickett myself in terms of, I don't know, other than Joe Burrow, who is exceptional.
That West Virginia bias you just can't help yourself, can you?
Well, other than Burrow being, I think, one example, I can't think of a lot of examples of guys who were fifth-year players and did nothing really the 4 previous years and then came out of nowhere to kind of put themselves into this. I give him credit for having this great year to put himself in here, but he was very average in the 4 previous years.
Yeah, that's a good point. I haven't really done – there's a lot of things I've been researching lately, but that one was not one on guys that just kind of came out of nowhere. Like a Zach Wilson, for example, came out of nowhere, but it's not like he was mediocre or worse in his younger years at BYU. So I get your point. He did a transformation, but it's funny how some will look at that as a negative as opposed to, wow, he really picked up his play and worked hard to develop into a really good quarterback at the college level.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. But again, I go back to Burrow. He's the one guy, he transferred. He had guys blocking him, so you never got to see him. Pickett actually played.
Yep.
You might not have ever heard of him because he stunk. I mean, he didn't do anything. And then all of a sudden, that 5th extra year, okay, I'm a little bit better than everybody out here because I'm a little more advanced. And I think that's something because there's a Twitter handle. I can't remember. I just was actually looking at it during the break. It's like NFL Film Study or something. And, they're pointing out a lot of plays where Pickett does not read the defenses very well. He just goes off the fact that he's a little bit more advanced than a lot. He's a 5th-year senior playing against a lot of – and the ACC was down this year.
Yeah, no, I think that that was what I was alluding to when I said that there are teams that have concerns about Kenny Pickett that have nothing to do with hand size and more to do with actual football and the art of playing quarterback. Yeah. He did have a great year. They credit him for that. But when you start to look at the tape and, you spend hours breaking these guys down, those are things that come to the surface.
All right, Moshe, I want to, we're getting close to the start of free agency. Today is Thursday. So by this time in 2 weeks, free agency will have been open for business already. So we could be in the heart of talking about movement and things. With that being said, you talked to a lot of people out there this week, I'm sure. What is the opinion of where the Eagles' 53-man is as it stands at the end of the season right now, entering free agency?
Yeah, that's something that Adam and I talked about on the podcast that dropped this morning. We spent a lot of time the last few days just talking to people around the league who are not affiliated with the Eagles about their opinion of the Eagles, the roster, what they thought. Some of teams who did play them, some who just got to either scout them or see them. And not surprisingly, the opinion is that the Eagles appeared to kind of overachieve from a win-loss, how it looks record, but that they are a roster that really needs work. They're not a team that really jumps out at you as ready to definitely take that next step. Whereas sometimes when you go from 4 wins to 9 wins, it looks like, oh, this team's on a great trajectory and next year they're going to be even better. There's more skepticism. They're just talking about people looking at the 53-man roster and especially what they have on the defensive side and saying that there's a lot of work to be done here if this team really does want to take that next level. It's not just like a little tweak. I mean, they've really got to have an influx of talent at certain positions.
I think most of those positions would be on the defensive side of the ball. And I guess the fact that their offensive line is pretty good all the way across kind of hides a lot of things and says, yeah, most of those deficiencies are defensive-oriented.
Yeah. And then certainly there are some offensive things that they've got to work out. But obviously defense is the area that they've got to have an influx of youth, athleticism, talent, playmaking ability from top to bottom.
Well,
there are a number of positions.
On offense, right? The offensive line, I would imagine all 5 guys are going to be back.
Yeah, and by the way, that's going to create a really interesting conversation about what you're doing at left guard, where Sayamalu is a pretty good guard, and Dickerson did a really nice job, and then Driscoll, who's also done a really nice job. So you got 2 spots, 3 guys there if Jason Kelce doesn't retire.
Yeah, that's definitely. And then you've got a very good tight end. You have a pretty good running back with Sanders. We can get into him a little bit, too, because I guess Howie was asked about his extension. He says, we don't want to talk about things, but we could talk about it. You've got Smith. Really, I mean, your offense seems pretty lock, stock, and barrel except for the other wide receiver spot.
Yes, except for the other wide receiver spot. And while Quez Watkins had a really nice second year, I don't know that, although the Eagles sort of gave that impression that they thought he was one of the up-and-coming number 2 receivers in the league, we see week to week that teams have really good number 1 and number 2 wide receivers, guys who are both capable of 1,000-yard seasons around the NFL. Some of the best teams, even within the own division, like the Cowboys did. So it's better than what they've got on defense as far as holes, but it's not like the offense doesn't need to be tweaked as well.
Right, exactly. Well, that's another good point is you have the same line, you have the same pretty much everything except for wide receiver. You would imagine they're going to bring in something new. There's going to be some new player at that position. How does that change the offense, or does the quarterback dictate that?
Right. Well, and that's part of the question, too, about the quarterback. Can the quarterback take that next level jump? You heard Nick Sirianni say yesterday there's 4 main things that he looks for in a quarterback. And he said Jalen Hurts has 2 of them locked down, without a doubt. He can create plays on his own, and he has the arm strength to make every throw he needs to make. Now, we can talk about –
Are you surprised by that? Because I think a lot of people, one of their things is, well, he doesn't have the arm strength.
No, because, I mean, Nick didn't go into the whole – he just said he can make every throw, which Jalen can. Now, if you want to open up that conversation as, well, what can he make that throw on the run, or if he doesn't have, as much time, if he's hurried and he's trying to throw the ball 35 yards, that's a different conversation. Nick is generally saying that you give the guy time, you let him throw the ball, he can make any throw, which in itself is accurate. We know the game doesn't always go that way, though. That's the issue. The other 2 things, though, that he said that he needs to improve are decision-making and accuracy, which we've spent a lot of time throughout the year talking about. So obviously that's one of the missing pieces of the puzzle to making this team either go in a forward direction or taking a step back.
Right. Yeah, you're right. He said there's 4 things, accuracy, decision-making, playmaking ability, and what was the 4th one?
decision-making, accuracy, playmaking ability, and arm
strength, right?
The arm to make every throw.
And that he has two of those. So you're wondering if this offseason he comes back and displays that we can open up the playbook more because I've shown you that I have better at these areas.
I mean, I absolutely took from his press conference that Nick Sirianni is not expecting to go into 2022 running the same offense that he ran for the last 7 games of 2021. He obviously stated that the team needs to, everybody, not just Jalen, but everybody kind of needs to identify the areas where they can improve and attack that so that everybody can get better collectively, from coaches to players. And so, you know what he wants. Any coach would like to open up the offense and be less one-dimensional and be able to exploit the ball deep when they're not running and hit the middle of the field. They want to be able to do what every good offense can do. Now, but, that goes back to, Mike, the conversation that we were having out in Indy with a lot of different people. Like, if you compare the 7th seed in the AFC, which was the Steelers, but could have been the Raiders or could have been the Chargers, right? It all came down to that last week. Now, one guy from an AFC team, a good AFC team, said to me, any one of those teams was scary as a 7th. Like, any one of those guys could have gotten hot, whether it was Herbert, whether it was Carr, or maybe even the Steelers, because they play good defense at times and Ben could do something. You just knew that if you played them, you have to bring your A game. Whereas in the NFC, it's not like the Eagles as the 7th seed struck that same type of fear that, oh man, like if we don't bring our A game, this team's going to really embarrass us. So there's a big difference there between the conferences and what 9 and 7 really looks like.
Geoff Mosher, InsideTheBirds.com, the Inside the Birds podcast. This is Football at 4. You said something interesting. I think we were talking about Weidel and the way the contracts are structured for some of these guys. Like, hey, his contract's up after the draft is over. Yesterday, it seemed that the Eagles, Howie Roseman, he seemed a little annoyed by the fact that you could lose front office guys in the middle of this process.
Yeah, and I think he makes strong points. I think it's very difficult to go forward in draft and free agency planning when you lose key, critical, high-ranking members and more than one, especially when one goes in the conference, the other one goes within the division. But the old way didn't work either. The old way, to me, was unfair, where you could just block a guy from getting a promotion unless it was for general manager, and then you couldn't block a guy, right? So that seemed unfair. Like, you can't have an industry where guys are doing well, they're wanted, but you have the chance to block them right then and there. The rules have been laid over a couple of years now since they amended that, and the Eagles haven't complained about it. So to me, it's a little bit of sour grapes when it hurts you this year that you're going to be a little bit more vocal about it when every team can be affected and impacted by this. It's not just the Eagles. So, and again, the old way wasn't fair either. Now, if there's some kind of happy medium that can be come up with, maybe the NFL will come up with it. But I imagine they probably thought of that even when they changed the rules a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and I guess we talked about this the other day, that the Eagles seem to be affected by this. People are poaching from the Eagles more than most places.
This year, yes. Other years it's going to be somebody else. So that's why I said it's you either like the rule or don't like the rule. You don't not like it when it hurts you the most, and then don't care about it. I kind of wrote that I likened it to the overtime rule. The people who complain about it the most are the ones that lose in overtime because they never got the ball, right?
Yeah, and the Colts, I guess, put in some new option where both teams are guaranteed to get the ball, right?
Yeah, I think that they're headed in that direction.
All right. Based on what Roseman said yesterday, do you think that the Eagles are more likely to make all 3 of their first-round picks, or does it sound like, nah, we're not too interested in that?
Yeah, I would be surprised. I know how, and I asked this of Howie at the press conference, I know how into analytics and research he is, so I had asked him about, the recent history that you and I have talked about on the show of teams that have had 3 or more first-round picks and it not really being that advantageous as far as like the teams would have go back and look at it and say, this is not what we were hoping we were going to be getting, right? The Browns, the Giants are the most recent examples. They had 3 each and it didn't exactly work out for them the way they wanted to. And I think Miami as well. So knowing Howie and knowing that he's made the most trades in the draft since he's become GM, to me, I'd be more surprised than not if he didn't make some kind of move that didn't involve packaging picks to either move up or down. But I don't see them sitting at 15, 16, and 19 and taking 3 players. I could be wrong about that. I'm just going on based on what Howie said himself. Because when Howie answered the question, and I thought it was a good answer, he said, look, I mean, you have to see where the picks are. I mean, there's a big difference between picking 1 through 10, then 11 through 20, and then 21 through 30. So the percentages get lower and lower each time. So we're in that kind of nebulous zone, right, of the middle of the draft where it's not like an 80% chance you're going to hit.
Yeah.
So I think he knows he needs to hit on at least one guy. And I said, do you feel like you need to make 3 first-round picks? And I asked that, Mike, because everybody seems to say, oh, they're going to replenish with 3 first-round picks, 3 first-round picks, 3 first-round picks. And Howie said, no, I don't feel the need to make 3 first-round picks. And I think that's wise of him to keep any option open.
Okay, well, like where they are as a roster, doesn't adding 3 players seem to make more sense? Like, in other words,
no, I don't. I actually don't believe that.
Okay,
because
well, that's the conversation then. Like where they are as a roster, they need young players. So getting 3 very young players isn't appealing, or are they getting a veteran player to come here?
Right.
Like, does that suggest they think they're closer to winning something bigger? I don't know.
I think you should ask yourself, would you rather have, not that you know exactly what you're going to get because the draft is a crapshoot, but based on percentages, would you rather have 3 good to mediocre players or 1 elite player and 1 good to mediocre player? So what I'm basically saying is, what if the Eagles took 15 and 19 packaged together to move into the top 10, where the percentages of you getting a Pro Bowl / All Pro player are way, way bigger than 19 or lower, right? What if you packaged those to do that and then kept your other pick and made a pick in that 15 to 20 or 16th it would be, and got yourself a player who's going to be good but not great? I think that you need blue chip talent, especially on defense, especially in the secondary, which the Eagles have lacked for a long time. And if you're a good enough team, and you should feel you are, whether your history says so or not, if you're a good enough organization, you also have a lot of second, third. I mean, they have 10 picks and they're probably going to get more through the compensatory draft. So they'll have flexibility to move up, down, target other players that they hope to hit on, meaning that these guys can become good complementary pieces, maybe middle end starters, or maybe you get lucky and one guy really develops. But if you go through 10 picks and not one of those guys projects to be elite, then what have you done for yourself? Because the Eagles have shown you the last few years, they've had okay guys. They need elite guys, and you get those in the top 10, 11, 12 kind of area of the draft.
All right, well, that's a good breakdown. Elite player, Jalen Reagor, he is not. My question would be, if they draft or sign a guy, would they not play him? A first-round pick, and he's just – what's his fate? Just not playing? You're J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. You have no role.
Oh, you're saying if they draft a wide receiver in the first round?
If they draft or sign a free agent, is Reagor the odd man out? Is he the next guy that, like what's his fate as
I think that depends on the type of signing.
Being a first-round pick.
Right. I think that depends on the type of signing. If they give some young wide receiver, let's just throw out a name. Let's say they sign DJ Chark. I'm not reporting that they have any interest or anything like that. I'm just using an example. If they were to sign him to like a 4 or 5 year deal, even a 3-year deal that's lucrative, then he's got a spot, and that pushes someone like Jalen Reagor, lower down the totem pole. If they do a 1-year deal for a veteran like I guess Juju Smith-Schuster, right? Then there's no law that says that if Juju's just okay for you and Jalen's having a great camp, you can't play Jalen over Juju. It's a 1-year deal. You're not breaking the bank for a guy. You're just trying to add to some depth and see if that kind of 1-year signing helps you in any areas you're deficient. So I think the rules change depend on who you sign.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see as a first-round pick because, the team has, people have accused the front office of saying, hey, you got to play this guy because he's a first-round player or a second-round player, right?
They have been accused. And teams, it's not just the Eagles that do that. A lot of teams believe in the idea that, when you get a first-round pick, you're looking 3 years down the road anyway. And so if a guy struggles in year 1 and year 2, you give him an opportunity at least to have year 3, especially if you think that there are extenuating circumstances around that. So we'll see. I mean, we said it on the podcast. I know with Jalen Reagor, we talked. There are teams that we spoke to, Adam and I, who still believe in the kid. They believe the kid had talent. He was not per se overdrafted. He could have gone anywhere, late first, early second, and that maybe in a different environment, he will thrive. So we'll see. I know that there are teams that like him. And as we talked about in the podcast, we know that Jacksonville is a team that has Doug Peterson, and Doug Peterson likes Jalen Reagor. I heard he still likes Jalen Reagor. So we'll see. I mean, maybe Howie is going to get some calls that he never anticipated getting. I don't know.
All right.
We'll have to see.
That would be interesting. A couple injured guys. Give us a quick update on Hurts, who had ankle surgery, and Davion Taylor, who did not make it through the end of the year.
Yeah, the Hurts thing is a little bit worth monitoring because Howie completely shown any answer when he was asked about Jalen Hurts' ankle injury. I know this, that when he came back and played on the ankle, it was not 100%, and he had to favor the leg in the way he played. That's something I heard while I was out in Indianapolis. Then he had the ankle surgery, which was a routine. It wasn't a major surgery. I believe there was some bone spur shaving going on there. And I was told that he's still a little bit sore in the leg area, like not just the ankle, but up the leg because he was favoring it. So I don't know if that's going to require more treatment or if he just needs to kind of continue his rehab. And Howie did say that he expects Jalen Reagor to be ready for off-season activities, so that's a good sign. But I'm just saying I heard that he's still got a little bit of soreness in the leg.
All right, and Taylor?
Davion Taylor. I mean, the guy had a calf injury, then a hamstring injury, knee injury. I mean, he had his season ended because he went on IR twice. So it's my understanding that he's going to try to do some different workout techniques here. He's built he's so twitched up. He's got all this muscle and speed, and sometimes that can work against guys. They get those soft tissue injuries. So he's going to try to adjust his training a little bit. And also going to try, remember, he doesn't have a ton of experience at linebacker. And the last time he got hurt was when someone kind of rolled up on him in a pile. So they're going to work on his awareness for the pile and when to be there and not be there to keep him injury free.
That's something new.
Yeah.
All right. Sports Bash Live 97.3 ESPN. Combine continuing. We'll talk to Adam tomorrow. He'll give us some more nuggets from the NFL Combine. And, of course, you can check out the Inside the Birds podcast, InsideTheBirds.com, and all of the shows on the Inside the Birds platform. Geoff Mosher, appreciate it, man.
All right, my friend. Talk to you later.
All right, that's Geoff Mosher from InsideTheBirds.com. Football at 4.